Well, hey there, kids, and welcome into a live special edition of the Fight Freaks Unite and Big Fight Weekend YouTube page here. I am merely the somewhat capable host, TJ Rives. He is our insider, Dan Rafael. Fight Freaks Unite is the Substack that he operates on, but he's with us all the time on Big Fight Weekend's podcast page, and now the burgeoning, the blossoming YouTube page as well. And look who's here with us. Ask and ye shall receive. Todd Grisham must not have known that Dan Rafael was going to be involved because he accepted the invite. And the zings begin right there with that hello, Todd Grisham of DAZN.
Hey, I know Dan Rafael is a big WWE fan, so we've been to a WWE event together. We've done the quizzes together, so we go way back.
Where was that? We went and was it in New York?
It was Madison Square Garden. Yeah,
that's
right.
Madison
Square Garden house show like 8-9 years ago.
Was that like the night before, like Joshua and Ruiz won?
That might have been it, yeah.
Oh my God, you two have already sidetracked the entire show. Thank you for finding us.
What you have to know is that for years before I ever met you, Grisham and I worked at ESPN together.
That's right.
And we used to do stuff on SportsCenter on ESPN News all the time when big fights going on.
So you were putting up with Rafael longer ago than I was putting up with Rafael, and yet you still agreed to come on.
That's why I have more gray hair than you, TJ.
And I have no hair left from dealing with Rafael. But in any event, thank you for finding us. I know, yes. Rafael's got enough for both of us on the head and on the beard. Thank you for finding us on the YouTube page here. Again, we're doing a lot of different unique content. This is on the YouTube tonight, and Todd has agreed graciously to sit here and talk with us about the fights and some of the stuff he's done recently. And Rafael's like, I got this topic. I got that topic. I'm like, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. Also, we will get to some live questions if you have them. Now, again, if you're seeing this after the fact, we did it midweek here in August on a Tuesday night, fresh off of Todd having worked the Golden Boy DAZN card on the live play-by-play with Sergio Mora, the Latin Snake, and Chris Mannix, as Oscar Duarte won the main event over Kenneth Sims. In fact, why don't we begin right there? You're fresh off of having worked that. Todd, what are your thoughts on the Duarte victory and where it puts him in the mix at 140 pounds? You were right there in Chicago.
Very entertaining fight. Oscar Duarte, he's in the ilk of Zepeda. He doesn't have the same output, but he's got that same nonstop Mexican aggression. He just won't leave you alone. And for the most part, Kenneth Sims Jr. handled it pretty well, but I mean, eventually it just breaks you down. And the big highlight for me was the crowd. It wasn't sold out, but man, Chicago's been thirsty for a fight for a long time. That place was electric, man. It was on fire. And of course, the co-main event with Prograis and Jojo Diaz set the table. But Oscar Duarte, man, he's a force to be reckoned with. And Ryan Garcia said that Duarte's the hardest hitter he's ever been in the ring with. So he's going to be a problem for anybody at 140 pounds.
Todd, did you think that when I was watching it, I mean, it was competitive. And that's how you guys were calling competitive. It just felt to me like all the good things that Sims was doing. He was excellent with his flurries. He was good with his jab. He was great on his counter shots. But it was just so very obvious to me watching on the broadcast, but not in person. Duarte was just hitting him with bigger punches. Was that sort of the difference, do you feel like, in the fight?
Yeah, I felt like Duarte, he landed more, he threw more. Well, I guess that I don't have the CompuBox numbers right in front of me. They landed about the same.
Yeah, they were very close.
If you're not counting the punches like CompuBox is religiously, it just felt like Duarte was landing more and throwing more, and he's the aggressor. And I've noticed in boxing scoring lately, and I don't know if you'll disagree with me here, Dan, but it feels like the last couple of years, any of these close fights, whoever the aggressor is getting the benefit of the doubt. Those close rounds where everybody on Media Road turns to the other guy and goes, who did you give that to? I feel like judges are going, well, you know what? This guy took the fight to him, and that's why he won those close rounds. As horrible of a fight as Canelo Alvarez was against William Skull, I think those rounds where you're like, you know what? At least Canelo was chasing him, so let's give him the round because he was the guy chasing him. So,
and just so you know, you were just saying, I just called it up while you were saying your answer to that question. According to CompuBox, in that Duarte fight against Sims, they each landed 229 punches, but it was Sims who only threw 669, but Duarte 900. So if the lands are the same, but the output is much greater, that seemed to be. But to me, it was more that the landing shots were much heavier.
Yeah. Well, and there'll be some boxing heads that'll say, wait a minute, Sims was more accurate, so you should put a premium on that. Duarte wasted so many punches, but, Duarte's just a mauler. He's just trying to hit whatever he can hit, shoulders, neck, forehead, whatever he can land, and Sims was more of a sniper. It just felt like Duarte was working harder, doing more, and as you said, landing the heavier shots.
Love the insight. Dan and I recapped it. You lived it at ringside on the broadcast. Regis Prograis, Jojo Diaz. We said going in, Dan said this going in, that these guys are obviously on the backside, if not basically for the most part done in their careers, and that it could lead to a toe-to-toe slugfest. And that's pretty much what we got. That's us assessing it. What were your thoughts on calling that fight, which had some big punches landed and some drama throughout?
You're talking about the Rigaru fight?
Well, yes.
Diaz?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yes.
It reminded me of, I think it was Derek Chisora versus Joe Joyce. Was that a year ago? Did they fight?
Yes.
Two guys that are kind of on the downhill. Those make the best fights sometimes.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Guys with nothing to lose. They're willing to take the shots. They're not thinking of getting out of the fight and throwing in the towel because they know it's the last chance saloon. Those are the most exciting fights. They may not be the most, aesthetically pleasing from a boxing sense of the world, man, but those get the crowd going, and that's what keeps people coming back. That's what the, Joe Six-Pack, who's been drinking a six-pack of Modelo out in the parking lot, wants to see. He wants all entertainment. He wants action. He wants machismo, and those are the kind of fights that delivered. And who thought that Jojo Diaz would be the guy that was rocking Prograis? But it was
he's never in those kinds of fights either.
No, and hey, you want to see him again now. And he's lost what? He's lost 7 of his last 9, Diaz has. But you want to see him fight Regis Prograis again. And that's kind of one of the, hidden Easter eggs of boxing, I think, that someone who's just exciting can extend their career just because you want to see, exciting fights.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on one of the earlier fights on the card. I think it was the second fight of the main card, and that was Joshua Edwards, the heavyweight. That's the 2024 United States Olympian. Got a quick knockout. Obviously was not in there with anybody that was, a standout type of opponent. But this is about getting the reps, getting the experience as a professional, letting the fans get to know him a little bit, listen to him talk after the fight, for example, has a good demeanor about him. What are your thoughts about him? Because TJ and I talk all the time about just the utter lack of interesting American heavyweight up-and-comers. We talk about Richard Torres, but once we got past him, and, Jared Anderson has been kind of, lost and kind of been exposed a little bit, that Edwards seems like the only other guy that's there right now.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you never know how good these guys are because they're fighting, let's be honest, a tomato can. The guy he was fighting was 4-1 and had no amateur experience. He said the first time he fought as a professional, it was because his buddy was fighting and someone fell off the card, and he had been his training partner, said, "You want to try fighting?" He said, "Sure, why not?" So, of course, he's going to look good as a former U.S. Olympian. But, you never know until these guys step up in competition. I mean, look, Jared Anderson looked like a world beater until he met Martin Bacoli. And then that made Martin Bacoli look like a world beater. Yeah. And then Joseph Parker disposed of him. So the heavyweight division is so fickle. But I agree with you. He's got some skill. He's obviously got pedigree, a great amateur background. So at this point, as an American fan of heavyweight boxing, you're grasping at straws. And he seems to have at least something going for him. And Oscar De La Hoya, for what it's worth, can't speak highly enough about him. So, let's see where he is in 1 or 2 years.
Love it. From Todd Grisham of DAZN with us here for a little while on this Tuesday night, depending on whenever you're seeing us. If you're seeing us live, get some questions in here while he's here with us. We appreciate his insight. We are going to work our way back to Oleksandr Usyk-Tyson Fury 1, which for all time, Todd Grisham was on the play-by-play mic with Darren Barker and Barry Jones and the whole crew from DAZN in Saudi Arabia a year ago. We're going to ask him about the heavyweights in that regard. But I want to back up while we go chronologically right now to where I was around you. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with you, but in Anaheim, California, Jake Paul, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Back in June at the Honda Center, which was full of a lot of fans for Chavez Jr. I think they were maybe half hoping that Chavez Sr. would somehow, rub off on Chavez Jr. It didn't really happen. What did you think about the whole night of the whole event? It had some action. It had some knockouts. But speak to that and speak to calling that card in Anaheim in June.
Well, the positives for me is just what Jake Paul brings outside of the ring. He brings new fans to the arena. You know this, TJ. You're there, and they show up at 6:30, jam-packed. And you see influencers and young girls and people just excited to see fights who've never been there before. And that's what you want, people to test the waters and come check out our sport. You know, they're not showing up to the fights in Chicago. They're showing up to Jake Paul events and to these Misfits shows in England. I know a lot of people don't like them, but that's just hopefully the introduction. And then you kind of introduce them to the higher levels of the sport. So, you know, the DJ's there, there's great energy. It's a lot of fun. They're cheering for everything. So that alone, I think, is such a positive that I don't know if we give enough attention to. But as far as the fight itself, Chavez was a disgrace. And I don't usually say that. I mean, you got a former world champion that just didn't even throw punches and circled around the ring. If he could have run as fast as William Skull did, that he would have done that, but he just can't do that anymore. He didn't fight until the last 2 or 3 rounds of the fight, and he did okay and got the crowd into it. So, you know, it's a great name on, or I wouldn't say great name, but it's the biggest name on Jake Paul's resume, and that's what he was looking for because people are like, fight a real boxer. He's like, okay, how about this guy who has a huge following, a great last name, and a former world champion? And he beat him comprehensively.
The cynic in me says that was exactly the way it was always supposed to go because he had a win of merit since 2012. And he was fighting a dead man. And that's, so I guess my perspective is like anybody that had any greater expectation, shame on them. So I'll ask you about a real fight on that card. It didn't turn out to be a big time fight because of how quick it was. But to me, the star that night was what Floyd Schofield did to Tevin Farmer by knocking him out in the first round. Farmer coming off having given William Zepeda 2 very difficult fights in a row. Schofield getting a lot of grief because of the illness / pulling out of the fight against Shakur Stevenson and that sort of thing, and hadn't gotten knocked down in the previous fight. I mean, I guess it's not a shock that he won the fight against Farmer, but when you see him go in there with all the stuff that was swirling around and get the first round knockout and do so super impressively, what do you think that said about the young man?
Well, I think his reaction said it all. The fact that he was in tears afterwards, the amount of pressure, and his dad's for the lack of a better term, a loudmouth. He likes to speak on his behalf, sort of like Bill Haney does, sort of like Teofimo Lopez's father does. But his father put so much pressure on him, saying that he could beat Shakur Stevenson right now, and he's the future, and I don't think Floyd Schofield could handle it. Or he even mentioned he wanted to walk away from the sport after all the drama surrounding the pullout over there in Riyadh. So the fact that he won that way was just the biggest weight of the world off his shoulders, and I think he's going to be even better now. And it was just such a great moment for him and for the sport. You know, we need electrifying fighters. We need knockout artists. We need people that are going to generate buzz. And off of that performance, you know, in this sport, just one performance can turn your whole career around. And now instead of saying this is the guy that pulled out of the biggest fight of his life, now you're saying he just knocked out Tevin Farmer in the first round. I want to see him back in there against, you know, a great fighter.
So I'll take that one step further then. So the Shakur fight didn't take place. Shakur went and took care of his business and looked really good in a superb performance against Zepeda. They got that win. Schofield scored the big knockout against Farmer, who gave Zepeda 2 tough fights. It seems to me that the fight that they should make is to put the fight between Shakur and Schofield back together again. You got the storyline of what happened with the fight getting canceled, plus the performances that they both had in the interim since then. And it's not like there's other big names that are sitting there waiting that are available for like the end part of this year. How much would you like to see them put that back together?
I'd love to see it, but this is going to tell you how much they really think they can win the fight. They had a shot, and it didn't pan out for whatever reason. If it gets made, it gets made. Turkey Al-Sheikh's the kingmaker. Happy birthday. If he wants that fight, he's going to put the money up, and we'll see if Floyd Schofield takes it. It's there. He's full of confidence. And Shakur, I mean, he beat Zepeda, but Zepeda clipped him a couple times, and I don't think it's a walkover for Shakur. I don't think he has the hands, the power to keep Schofield away from him. He's going to, have to stick and move like he does. So even if Schofield loses, I don't see it being just, like Jared Anderson getting blasted out by Bacoli, where, you got to go back to the drawing board for 2 or 3 years. If he loses,
it seems like it's better now than it would have been.
I'm only, what is he, 23 years old? I'm only 23 years old. Who cares? Just like Moses Atama. If you throw him in there with Usyk and he loses, okay, well, guess what? Usyk's 15 years older than you. You got plenty of time to turn it around.
That's like Canelo losing to Floyd. Maybe.
Yeah.
And I think, and one of the good things about Riyadh season is these matchups are getting forced to happen earlier and earlier. And I think it's great. And we're learning the contenders from the pretenders pretty early on.
Well, and one other aspect, Dan just touched on it. If you're talking about American fighters and some intrigue, now because they have both won since the whole debacle with Schofield pulling out the week of the fight, and the way that Schofield won and how good Shakur looked, now there's going to be more interest in that fight from the American consumer, right?
I'd love to see it. Yeah, absolutely. The problem is we've got to get these fights on prime time in the United States. No one wants to watch boxing in the U.S. at noon. I don't think it's fair. It's just not going to happen. Hopefully this Netflix card with Canelo and Crawford really gets some numbers. But I just think, you got to get these guys on in prime time. You got to hype it up the right way and sell it. You can't have these fights taking place in, noon on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
it's
a struggle
to get people jazzed up for it. That's just my personal opinion.
I agree with you on that. Again, Todd Grisham, gracious to hang with us here as we do this live. A lot of live audiences joined us in the last few minutes. Thank you for doing so on YouTube, on the Big Fight Weekend YouTube page. Big Dan Rafael and I hanging out. He and Grisham go a ways back with ESPN days, and Todd working boxing there, and then World Wrestling Entertainment, as it's now known.
Yeah.
And now with DAZN. Hey, a fun one in terms of the biz and calling fights. Shout out to what that is like right now, working with DAZN, which has really become the premier outlet for boxing worldwide. What is it like working with Sergio Mora, Chris Mannix, your crew, and to be involved in all of these big fight cards that you've been involved with these last few years? What would you say?
Hashtag blessed,
Yeah.
And I think I'm okay at my job, but I'm not going to, be an idiot and not realize that a lot of it's just luck. Just, I could have been working for Showtime, or I could have been working for ESPN, and they're going out of business, So I was lucky to be at the right place at the right time, and DAZN has flourished and gotten all these big fights, and I've been lucky to call a large majority of them. So it's been amazing. And working with Sergio and Chris, I mean, you talk about yin and yang. You got a guy who tips 100% on to the waitress, and you got a guy that tips 0 in Chris Mannix. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. But Chris Mannix is extremely good at his job, I think, and his fight cards or fight scorecards get a bad rap. There's never a good scorecard, no matter who. No one's going to
you're not telling me about that, man.
They're not going to score it the exact way that you score it. No one is. That's just the way it goes. Even if they have the same number as you, if you go back and look at the rounds, no one ever scores the fight basically the same way. So that's just the way it is. And Sergio, as much as he's funny and self-deprecating, if you listen to what he says, he's very intelligent at breaking down fights, and he sees things that I just don't see. And the best part about him is he can usually, the guy who's losing or who looks bad, he can always find something that he's doing right or something that you're not seeing. And I think that's what he brings to the table that a lot of other guys can't do.
And DAZN, again, just worldwide, has now begun to work not only with Matchroom and Golden Boy, but has added Queensberry and Turkey Al-Sheikh with these Ring TV cards as well, and pay-per-views, and DAZN and the relationship there. Just interesting how all of that works. You certainly have gotten your frequent flyer miles back and forth to Saudi Arabia. We didn't go over this. Where are you still living in the Northeast? Am I correct? And then you got to get to Saudi Arabia. Where do you connect? Do you connect through England, Guam, Buenos Aires? I don't know. Where do you connect?
I'm still in Connecticut. You can literally see the ESPN satellite dishes from my front yard. I live right next to ESPN, and I fly out, if it's in the United States, out of Hartford. But if I'm going internationally, I'll drive 2 hours and fly out of Boston. So it usually goes through Istanbul, or I go through London. So it's not terrible.
Dare I ask, how many times have you actually been to Riyadh at this stage?
I think 8 or 9.
So wow. I say that because as a person that has traveled a ton also in my days of covering boxing for 25 years, I hate the travel. It's the worst part of the gig. And you guys are going international. So I have a lot of people within the business who I've known for years who do crazy travel, yourself, but others that I like know how obsessed I am with the long hauls. They'll like text me their itineraries. It blows my mind what some of these folks do. It's not like once in a while. It's like 10 times a year.
Well, you got to realize I worked at WWE for 8 years, and I traveled 51 out of 52 weeks a year for 8 straight years. So I'm like a battle-hardened veteran, and I'm with you, Dan, on the hotel water pressure. I'm real anal retentive about that. I get really upset about it. So there's my quirks as well, but thank God DAZN generally flies me business class, which really takes the edge off and helps you, especially on these long haul trips. But I'm kind of like Willie Nelson's old song, "On the Road Again." I just can't wait to get on the road again.
Yeah,
it's one of those things I told Sergio. Chris Mannix is having a baby soon. I said, here's what you're going to love about your kids. When you're away from them, you can't wait to get home. And then once you get home, you can't wait to get away from them.
So in some ways, that's true. As a man who's been traveling with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the last 20 years, it is an interesting dynamic. You're home and you enjoy it, but then you want to get away. And then when you're away, you want to get back home.
Exactly.
But I don't think Willie ever had to connect through Istanbul. Is that what you said? Connect through Istanbul to Riyadh. I don't know that Willie ever covered that on the road again.
Willie was flying high all the time.
That's a good line.
Okay.
That's a good comeback. Hey, and an excellent segue to Canelo Alvarez.
Well, I got one more question before we get there.
All right, we'll get to Canelo in Saudi Arabia. Go.
And the reason why I was thinking about this, because you mentioned about how Todd's been doing fights with DAZN, which is linked up with Queensberry now, in addition to having their events with Golden Boy and Matchroom. Come on, Todd, give us the lowdown. What do you hear about the possibility of Top Rank, which does not have anybody to deal with at the moment, perhaps doing something with DAZN?
I don't want to throw him under the bus, but I interviewed Emiliano Vargas the other day for a DAZN segment, and the last question was, "Hey, listen, I've never been able to call one of your fights. What are the odds we'll see Top Rank on DAZN?" And he answered the first time. He goes, "I'm not the person to talk about that. I can't really." Okay, but there was something wrong with his camera, so we had to reshoot it 2 different times. So the next time I asked him, he goes, "You know what? I think there's a pretty good chance you will." And then the third time he said, "I don't know. We'll have to wait and see." So take that for what it's worth, but. I mean, you would know better than me, Dan. I think at least part of their platform going forward might include a little of DAZN. They might sprinkle some somewhere else and some somewhere else. But, I mean, DAZN is the global boxing leader right now. And, you want to be where the action is. So hopefully we get to call them.
Love it on that. We'll get to a couple of viewer questions in a couple of moments. But the segue for Saudi Arabia has to do with Canelo Alvarez. So as you mentioned on one of those mini trips to Riyadh, you did call his fight with William Skull. And I got to commend you because you did a great job as things were going on of saying, of telling the truth, which is Skull is not here to win. Skull is not here to fight. And you even said a couple of times, the bizarre thing is, I believe he thinks he's winning. He thinks he's doing well. So bravo to you. But what was that whole scene like? Because that's the first time Canelo has fought outside of North America, to be there in Saudi Arabia and to be there early in the morning on a Sunday so that it could be the right time zone back in the United States.
Yeah, it's just so hard. I mean, imagine this your whole career. You're used to coming out in front of, at least 20,000 fans for the last 10 years going berserko, and you're fighting in prime time and everyone's just sauced and having a great time. And it's an amazing environment. And then you're literally fighting at 6 a.m. and it sounds like a library. I mean, that's what it felt like. And I think a lot of times the fighters feed off that. And listen, Mannix and Sergio were bashing William Skull, and I get why. But at the same time, I mean, was Canelo cutting the ring off? Was he doing what he's supposed to do? We've seen these fights on Friday Night Fights where a guy gets in the ring is just trying to survive, and guys find a way to get it done. So any criticism I think I've had of Canelo over the years, like when he lost to Bivol, when he lost to Floyd Mayweather, when he almost lost to William Skull, there just never seems to be a plan B. Have you noticed that? I mean, he's doing it this way, and if that way doesn't work, he just keeps being Canelo. So I never saw anything happen. I never heard his corner giving him any specific strategy on what to do. He just kind of kept following him around the ring, and that's just the way it was. And for Skull, that's the only way he could win, was to stick and move and barely touch him and not exchange. And he did what he came to do, and he thought he was winning the fight. You could see between the rounds, he was smiling and having a great time. Unfortunately, no one watching was.
I thought he lost basically every single round of that fight because he did literally nothing.
Yeah, Skull didn't do anything. Hey, Todd, unfortunately, we don't see you at the moment, so I don't know if your camera is off. It's a live show, folks. We do the best. If there's not an issue on your end, maybe jump out of the StreamYard that we're utilizing and come back in so they can see you. There we go. Now we see you on the camera. You still sounded magnificent, and we have the image of what you look like already. I mean, frankly, I do these video hookups with Rafael 3 times a week, and I wish I didn't have to look at him.
Hey.
So that's how the zings.
I sound
the
better
zings
than
continue.
I look anyway. That's but
back to Canelo and the aura around anytime he's doing an event. Dan, you were inside of AT&T Stadium with 70,000 people for the Billy Joe Saunders fight. You've been to several of these Vegas fights. I mean, it's just different, is it not, guys? When Canelo
100%.
is involved right now.
I mean, I've done like 25 Canelo fights, and and they've all been big. I mean, stadium fights and big Vegas fights, T-Mobile, MGM, obviously the stadium fight that you mentioned with AT&T, Minute Maid Park, Madison Square Garden. he's like Todd said, he feeds off that. And so when I feel like he came in the morning, Todd, tell me if I'm wrong, it's like 6 a.m. There's a few thousand people there. He's trying to get a belt back that they basically took from him that he didn't really, he already had the title. So that was, he wanted it back for the purposes to set up the Crawford fight, but that he just didn't have the enthusiasm. He didn't really know who Skull was. And so the question I have for you, and I have gone back and forth with my own thoughts about this. Was it just a matter of him going through the motions and just getting out of the Dodge with the win and it didn't look good, but he doesn't care? Or is he verging on shot?
You'd know better than me. It's just, I mean, I think he showed up to the arena. He told us he was going to sleep until 2 a.m. and then come to the arena. So just imagine what his clock was going through. I don't know what to say about Canelo right now, to be honest with you. And that's why this Crawford fight is kind of piquing everybody's interest a little bit. Maybe Canelo is, I mean, he's obviously not what he once was, but how motivated is he? And this is the thing about boxing. Like, he signed this huge deal with Riyadh Season to make all this money. And in boxing, you get paid once the fight starts, no matter how you perform, no matter what the outcome is. So that money is in his pocket. So no matter what happens. So when you're in the middle of the fight and this guy's running around the ring and not wanting to fight you, and I mean, what's the motivation?
I think
undisputed champion.
To that point, I think long about the 9th or 10th round, he didn't care anymore. He's like, I in my own head, I've won the first 8 or 9 rounds. I don't care anymore. I don't want to be here. He doesn't want to fight me.
I felt that way too.
So it seemed that way with Canelo, but we're looking forward to what's going to happen coming up with Terrence Crawford. While we have a moment, why don't we take some viewer questions? Because the peeps, the savages are always here. They're live. We've been promoting this. Let's see. Mr. Big Play says, good evening, everyone. Hello there. Luke says, 3 legends together, Big Dan, Big TJ, Big Todd. I don't know about me being a legend with these guys.
Todd, I would say, where's the third one?
I'm not sure. Ryan says, what's the most underrated fight city for both of you? Todd's our guest. What's the most underrated fight city? Was Chicago a good underrated fight city last weekend?
I'm going to say that. I'm going to say Orlando, Florida. As weird as that sounds, that little Caribe Royale resort. Every time I go there, it's jam-packed and it's lit. Everyone's having a great time. And again, like I said in Chicago, you don't have to have a MSG with 20,000 people. If you get 4,000 people in a smaller arena, that feels more energetic than almost anywhere else. And it was electric in there for Jojo Diaz versus Regis Prograis. And that little Caribe Royale resort, it gets pretty loud too. And I enjoy going there.
Rayfield, give me a top 2 or top 3 underrated fight cities. You've been everywhere.
I'm going to play Homer. I got to say Washington, D.C., the DMV. A great fight tradition, produced lots of great fighters, has had numerous top champions. Wherever I've gone to fights, be it at the big arena, which is the Capital One Arena where Mike Tyson fought years ago, or where Gervonta Tank Davis fought, they packed in crowds at places smaller, like at the Armory, at the Convention Center, at the Constitution Hall, all kinds of different venues. The MGM National Harbor that sits right across the river, that's essentially in Washington. Plenty of venues. There's been a lot of great fights. A very underappreciated and underutilized city. And when promoters talk to me and we discuss locations, if you have a good fight, and especially if you have a good African-American fighter, because it's a heavily African-American fight town and they support their people, boxing fans, as well as, whatever the color is, it's a tremendous city for boxing. I've said that I've lived here 25 years, and it should have some more fights. No doubt about it. They support.
I'll float another one, Atlanta. And I know Grisham is a big Falcons guy, and I'm a Buccaneer guy. But Atlanta is an underrated fight town going all the way back to the days of Evander Holyfield, by the way. And even moving forward, they have had some title fights with Gervonta Davis fill in the building. Shakur Stevenson, didn't he have a main event, I believe, in Atlanta with Jamel Herring? Atlanta, to me, is also Atlanta's not a tremendous sports town through and through, but I think it's an underrated fight town. Would you boys agree with that?
It's a big event town. There's some cities. I mean, Vegas is certainly one of them. It's a big event, or it's a big moment, and you can dress up a little bit and spend a few
I don't know
bucks.
about for boxing though. I mean, they've had some of the fights you mentioned. But
I know it's UFC. I've been to a couple of UFC events there covering it for ESPN, and they packed out the Phillips Arena, if that's still what they call it down there. So just every time I've been to Atlanta, it's been pretty good. WWE as well, but I've never called a boxing match in Atlanta.
We would say underrated. I mean, Gervonta Davis filled the building, and I don't know what Shakur did attendance-wise, but they did have a main event there as well. All right, a couple more questions. Let's see. This is whatever that name is, 77, says, Todd, you know you're boxing, and you bring humor to the broadcast, which makes it fun and entertaining. Happy for your success story. Somebody else is also asking, I saw this, about how you got into the boxing game. Luke wants to know, how did you get into calling fights? Start with that, and then he wants to know about your best memorable boxing moment. How did you get into calling blow by blow?
Well, as you know, I started at WWE in 2004, 2012, and I've always been a boxing fan. My biggest fight ever, my favorite fight ever, was Tyson Holyfield 1, because Evander Holyfield's my favorite fighter of all time. I've told this story many times. My dad was an old school Southern guy and never was willing to chip in for pay-per-views. But we're like, Dad, come on, Holyfield, Tyson. And usually he'd be like, what do you mean pay-per-view? I already paid for cable. Why would I pay for it? But for some reason, he decided to pay for this, and it was me, him, and my brother. And man, what an emotional moment. We were jumping up on the couch, screaming and yelling. We didn't think he'd win. So that was just, ever since then, I mean, I'd always liked the sport, but that made me fall in love with it. And I was just a fiend watching the HBO series every week when it was on, all the fights. And then I called WWE, and when I went to ESPN, the first thing I did, I went and met with Matt Sanduli, who was the executive producer for Friday Night Fights. I said, look, I just want to be part of the show. Mopping the floors, whatever you need me to do. When I'm not doing SportsCenter, just please have me involved. And I started out as the backup for Brian Kinney as host. And then I became the host, and then I was the backup for Joe Tessitore as play-by-play, and then I started doing play-by-play, and then when my time at ESPN ran out, I started at UFC. I called UFC for a while, and then luckily I moved to DAZN and started calling boxing. So, you know, I'm living my dream.
Trivia, and I bet you remember, where was your first boxing play-by-play event for ESPN? Do you remember where it was and what it was?
Jacksonville, Florida, and the main event was Sergio Mora versus Proxa. So I'm talking about full...
And so you have not been able to get away from him for 15 years, is what you're saying.
He's like a fever blister that won't go away.
I love it. We got to play that as a clip as well. Our buddy Gail checks in and says that sauced is a very underused adjective. Thank you, Gail, on that when you were talking about the crowd being sauced in Chicago. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, Jose wants to know it. He asks it first. How cool was it calling Fury Usyk? You called the undisputed heavyweight title win, as it turns out, for Oleksandr Usyk back in May of a year ago. What was that like in Saudi Arabia?
I mean, it was surreal. It was the first, as you know, the first undisputed heavyweight title match in like 25 years since the Lennox Lewis fight. And just to be able to call it on that stage was incredible. And then there was that magical 9th round where Usyk was beating Fury pillar to post and nearly stopped him. I mean, it was just an amazing fight, an amazing night. And, you know, you can't really see around my little basement here, but if it's a huge moment in my career or a huge fun thing that I've called, I usually build a little plaque and get some autograph stuff and make it. So I'm going to make a really cool montage or whatever you call it for that fight, just because I'll never probably be a part of I don't know how a fight can be, as far as historical relevance, a fight as big as that one. I don't know if I'll ever be able to call it like that.
Todd, it lived up to the expectations because everybody picked it, myself and all the, the outlets, the organizations, the magazines, everybody picked it as the fight of the year.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, as great as that fight was, as far as atmosphere and just energy, I've never been a part of a fight as big as Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano 1 at Madison Square Garden. I mean, the electricity in the air that night, it was like a World Cup soccer game shrunk down to an arena. You had the Puerto Rican fans, you had the Irish fans. It was almost 50-50. You couldn't even hear. It was so crazy. And then the fight itself, I mean, they really elevated women's boxing that night. That's a night I'll never forget.
Hey, back to that 9th round where Usyk has Fury in trouble. Are you thinking, oh my God, he's going to knock him out? What were you thinking there in that moment on the mic?
For some reason, the one thing I was thinking, maybe I should have been a writer, Dan. As Fury was getting hit, I just kept thinking in my head, don't keep saying Fury. You got to come up with different descriptors for him. So he was getting hit. I was like, Fury's in trouble. The big fella's back. The Gypsy King might go down. The heavyweight. So I was just kind of thinking of different words to describe Fury. And the round just, I mean, that sequence just didn't seem to end. It was just, and right when he seemed to be coming to, he'd catch another one. So I just kept remembering to tell myself, don't be repetitive. Say it differently. So that's what I tried to do.
Kind of thought he got a little bit of a break from the referee. He's been a very lucky man because that fight easily could have been stopped there. Likewise, the first Deontay Wilder fight when he got knocked down.
He's been knocked down 8 times. He's been down 8 times in his career, I think. I mean,
and at least 2 of them, 100%, the ref would have been well within the rights to stop the bout.
Absolutely.
You're an excellent one to ask this. We've had the debate. Where does Usyk belong among the current, let's say, modern heavyweights or maybe even all-time heavyweights? I know Rafael's answer. I've heard him preach from the pulpit. What do you think about where he belongs?
Well, I don't know what his answer is, but I'll tell you this. I think the only Usyk, if you look at the odds, he was an underdog to Chisora. He was an underdog to AJ for both fights. He was an underdog to Fury for the first fight. He's been an underdog every single fight, and he always comes up. So when people go, oh, he wouldn't be able to beat this heavyweight, he wouldn't be able to hang with this heavyweight, I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure about that? I don't know anyone that just blasts him out of there. The only guy that I would be like, is probably Muhammad Ali in his prime. I don't know anyone else. I was arguing with Sergio about this the other week. He's like, what about a big, tall? I said, well, you got Tyson Fury. What about a big, strong? Well, you got Daniel Dubois. You got Anthony Joshua. Well, what about a guy that moves around? I was like, he defeated all these cruiserweights. I mean, who is the guy that's just going to make him look silly? I don't think there's one out there. So would he beat them all? I don't know. But, I mean, he's in the top 10 for sure. I mean,
you would put him in the top 10.
Why
Big
not?
Dan, reiterate, where do you have him? Do you have him in your top 10 at this point, Usyk?
I think after the way he took care of Dubois, I'm edging that way, but I still need to see a little bit more. And I say that because he's only had like 8 fights as a heavyweight, as opposed to guys that were around who fought. And I'm not knocking the guys he fought, because all you can do is fight the men that are in your era. But he's got a lot of those heavyweight fights. He's fought the same guy between Dubois, Fury, and Joshua. Those are 6 of his heavyweight fights. There's not been a lot of diversity. So I'm going to ask the question about that then. So I'm getting there. And I think Usyk is awesome. I mean, great as a heavyweight currently, and obviously was great as a cruiserweight, Olympic gold medal winner, and has done everything you can ask him to do, and been an ultimate road warrior on top of that. Todd, there's been a lot of conversation the last couple of weeks since the Dubois fight happened about who he should fight next. There's this, there's that. I hear about if Moses Itama defeats Dillian White, they should give him the title shot. And while I've got nothing against any of the other top contenders, to me, and I've written about this, I've opined about this, there's no need for mental gymnastics. The only guy that deserves a shot now, next, immediately, is Joseph Parker, based on what he's done in the last few fights, his position as the interim champion, his position as the mandatory, his position as a well-known guy who's fought everybody. What's your take on who Usyk should get in the ring with and defend against next?
100%. Joseph Parker, and I think he's going to give him. I think he'd give him the toughest challenge. To be honest with you, I don't want to see Fury again. 2 strikes and you're out. I mean, come on, really? You're going to retire for a year, come back and fight him again? Done.
Or at least not next. Is that fair?
Yes.
I mean, but the problem is Usyk's saying, I mean, unless he's changed his mind, he's only going to have one more fight. He might have an MMA fight, but he just wants one more fight. So put him in there against the guy that's going to give him the toughest challenge. I think it's Joseph Parker. I mean, I'd love it if we were like the old school heavyweight days where these guys were fighting 4 times a year. Imagine the fights we would be getting. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, hell, Chisora, the way he's had a renaissance, he might be able to knock out Parker and get a shot against Usyk. I don't know, but it's if you're giving me one shot and I got to pick one fighter that would give him the toughest fight right now, I'm going Joseph Parker. Interesting.
Bravo.
Yeah. And Ajit Kabayel might be better than Parker. We don't know.
But the main thing, though, is that Parker's the one that deserves it right now. Not to say Ajit Kabayel doesn't, but if you're in line, Kabayel's right behind Joseph Parker, it seems to me.
And you might have a stronger opinion on this than I do, Dan, but the Dubois pullout of that Parker fight where Bacoli had to switch in late, that was real sketchy in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dubois' team knew, look, why are we risking this when we're going to get Usyk at Wembley next and millions? Why are we doing this fight?
Yeah, it was strange that they got all the way to fight week and then that happens but that's not Parker's fault.
Dubois was fine. To be one thing if you're like, man, he doesn't sound good. He looked totally normal and totally fine. And when someone told me the first time, I think it was with Chris Mannix, we started laughing because we thought it was a joke. Yeah, get out of here. Like, no, he's sick and he's not going to fight.
The only reason why I didn't necessarily buy that was because typically if that would happen, they'd have done it like a few weeks before they actually got to Riyadh and put everybody in a jam.
To
go get Martin Bacoli to fly from, the depths of Africa on 2 days' notice. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe the people who poisoned Schofield also poisoned Dubois.
Oh, there we go. Nico wants to know better broadcast partner, Striker in WWE or the Latin Snake, Sergio Mora.
2 totally different type of guys. Matt Striker was very condescending. He was a heel, you know, where Sergio
Right.
was more my best friend, and he'll take jabs at me. But Matt Stryker was purposely, you know, throwing darts at me the whole time.
Stryker would try to hit you with a chair. Sergio would save you from being hit by the heel with the chair. I'll put it that way.
You're saying Stryker is more like Mannix, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yes.
Perfect.
Rafael is the heel in our group. Ace wants to know, did Todd ever work with Max Kellerman at ESPN? Rafael, I know you worked with Max. Todd, did you work with Max Kellerman on Friday Night Fights?
I wouldn't say he left, but he was doing stuff with Stephen A. Smith and wasn't a part of Friday Night Fights or the boxing coverage when I got there, unfortunately. But Max is the man. I think everybody agrees on that one.
Hey, one more that I wanted to ask you about as well. Jesse Bam Rodriguez, you worked his title win on July 19th. It had a little less than Manny Pacquiao or the Usyk Dubois. That doesn't mean it wasn't significant. You worked that. You saw him in person. What's this guy's ceiling? What not just what he's done, what is he going to continue to do in your mind?
Well, I defer to the people who know the Sergio Moores of the world and the Chris Mannixes of the world, but more importantly, Barry Jones in England. I mean, he couldn't be any higher on this guy. He thinks he's the next coming. And you saw that fight that he had, his opponent, it's not Puma, it was Cafu.
Cafu, yeah.
He had an interesting game plan. I'm sure you saw this, Dan. Mm-hmm. Instead of getting in the middle of the ring and fight, he would just stay on the ropes so that Bam couldn't throw those subtle movements that he used to score. And it was a very tricky fight. And Bam, after the fight, said this was the toughest opponent of his career. But he still figured him out, and he still stopped him. And that's what people want to see. I know we've seen these great fighters the last couple rounds, if they're winning, they just don't do anything. Same on that same card, Trevor McCumbee and Diego Pacheco. Pacheco didn't take any risks at all. He's like, hey, you know what? I might get Hamza Shiraz next. I might get this fight, so I'm just going to jab my way to a victory. No one wants to see that. That doesn't help the sport. It doesn't help sell tickets. Bam Rodriguez, if he gets you in trouble, he's going to finish you, and he's not happy if he doesn't. And that's the kind of fighter I want to get behind.
And you know what, Todd? Bam, if anybody was going to employ that style that you mentioned that Pacheco did, people could have understood if Rodriguez did it in that fight against Cafu, because a week and a half before the fight happened, Turki Al-Sheikh had announced that if he wins, so there's pressure on him about that, not just winning in general, but winning. And by the way, if you win, we already have your November fight set to have a 3-belt unification against Martinez. So he went into that bout with that on his mind. So the fact that he went and he took care of business and did not back off and didn't play it safe, to me, says a lot about what's in, not just in terms of being a smart boxer, but what's in his heart to go out there and do it and get rid of the guy.
And the mega fight of, I wouldn't say of all mega fights, but it's right up there, is Inoue versus Bam Rodriguez.
Can we get that? Is that realistic from both of you? Can we possibly get that? Because Inoue wants to fight at featherweight. Can Bam get up to 122, 126? Can we get that? Legitimately, I'm asking.
In between fights, he blows up. Now, can he get there in great shape? I don't know. But listen, he jumped up 2 weight classes, Dan, you remember, to fight Sarissat Sorangvasai and to fight Carlos Cuadras on late notice. So this guy can bounce around all these weight classes. And if there's that much legacy on the line and that much money on the line, if they have that fight in Vegas, all the Japanese businessmen who come to Las Vegas, those tickets will be going for $5,000-$6,000 a pop. That fight would be huge.
So one year ago this week, when I was in Los Angeles covering the Crawford Madrimov card, Bam was there as a fan, just hanging out. His brother, or rather Robert Garcia's trainer and manager, had some guys on the show, and I sat with Bam in the hotel one afternoon, and he talked to me about his dream fight was to fight Inoue. That's a year ago, before he fought the fight that he just won against Cafu. TJ, we had him on the podcast, and I asked him again, do you remember that? You were saying a year ago that that's your ideal fight, and he once again reiterated that his dream fight, once he takes care of certain other business and the pathway is cleared, that's still the fight that he wants against Inoue. And I mean, it depends on how quickly Inoue goes to 26. Maybe they could do it at 22, but Bam was like, if that fight is offered to me now, next month, next year, I'm taking the fight.
Well, he also said, listen, Nakatani's the only other guy that's floating around in there, and Bam's team said they offered Nakatani to Bam. Bam immediately said yes, but then Nakatani decided not to. He's holding out for that Inoue fight too. So first Inoue's got AJ Akhmadaliev, then he probably has Nakatani, and then maybe Bam.
Todd, I'll say this. You tell me if you agree. I love the notion of a Rodriguez against Inoue, and obviously you got to love the notion of Inoue against Nakatani. But I have said, if I could wave the magic wand and get any fight I wanted, I'd much rather see, no, I shouldn't say much rather, but I'd prefer, if I had to rank them in order, the fight I'd like give you maybe a couple of my toes for would be Bam Rodriguez against Nakatani.
Really?
Right.
I just
Yeah.
Inoue's got the monster. He's got the aura. Nakatani to me is a lesser known quantity, and I'm the crossover
Not lesser to
guy.
me.
I want to bring in guys, people that aren't big boxing fans. Hey, you heard of the monster? Yeah, I've heard of the monster. He's fighting this guy named Bam. You got to watch this. That's
Yeah.
The name recognition carries a lot of weight for me.
Listen, you've been gracious to sit with us here, and I promised you this would not be an hour. I'm gonna hold that up. What's next? Where are you working next for DAZN? And also, please promote whatever you'd like to promote, including the video game coverage that you're doing. Tell me what's next, though, for you.
Well, actually, what's next for me on DAZN? I'm going to be going to Amsterdam for Glory Kickboxing, and one of the posters right here. I've done Glory Kickboxing since 2016. 3 rounds, 3 minutes each. I mean, it's incredible stuff. You know, kicks, knees, punches. It's incredible action. I love doing that. So I'll be going to Amsterdam for that one on the 23rd. So that's what I'm pumped about next.
All right, so you got that next, and then the video game. You've been, yes,
yeah, it's been incredible. They sold over 1.5 million units. It's been great. Almost every big name fighter is in the game, and it's been great for the sport. You know, kids love. There's not many things kids love more than playing video games. Maybe skipping school and candies up there first, but you know, boxing hadn't had a video game in over a decade. So just to be able to have that calling card and that marketing tool, I think's really helped some younger fans out there get to know some of these boxers of today, and it's helped their profile, and you know, I think it's been good for everybody.
Love it.
I gotta say, I haven't played it, Todd, but I've seen some of the video and the graphics is very impressive.
Yes,
yeah, undisputed.
You guys did a great job with the video game. Todd, you were tremendous with us tonight. Thank you for giving us the time. Dan, any closing words there for your former ESPN colleague? We love his work.
I'll let him have the last word.
There we go. Todd, this was great stuff tonight. Thank you for hanging with us on YouTube. Good luck with whatever you're doing. If we can help promote it, we will do so. You do a great job, though, with Sergio and Chris Mannix. Keep knocking them dead on the DAZN fight cards that you're calling, as well as all your other endeavors. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Anytime. Appreciate it.
Big Dan, thank you for hanging here. We got preview stuff later in the weekend on the podcast. Go hear Terrence Crawford, by the way, on this YouTube channel. Dan with Terrence Crawford before the Canelo fight. It's on this YouTube channel under the videos. Go watch the interview with us. For Todd Grisham, for Dan Rafael, I'm merely TJ Rives. We appreciate you being with us here on the Big Fight Weekend YouTube channel.